All right. So we went to the island. We went to the Oscars. We went around the world. So where do we go for this season? Back to the
Back to the
island.
island.
So this is our retrospective look at total drama,
Drama.
revenge of the
Revenge of the
island.
Island.
So this season was very interesting for me to see, and we watched it all in one go, and I feel that worked for the best because the fact that it was a short series meant that overall I enjoyed it, and it didn't seem like there was a lot of like fluff put in because with the other seasons, the fact that they were 26 episodes long, I felt that a lot of them were pretty obviously stretched out just because of the fact we need to fill 26 episodes, and nowhere is this more egregious than in the last aftermath of World Tour, where it just seemed like they were padding it because they were like, well, we've got one more episode to fill, so let's just do this aftermath, even though it's clear that they had no idea what to do with it.
Personally, I think most egregiously this is done in action, where oh, where it just went way too ham on like the reward challenges, which is
Okay.
something I, which is something improved upon World Tour. But I will admit the 13 episode count does kind of like act as a double edged sword because yeah, there's very little fluff and we can get to the good stuff way faster. And but on the other hand, I do see why people prefer the 26 episode format because with twice the episode length, you could go more into developing the characters.
Yeah, I'll admit that is one of the benefits of the 26 episode run, um, because of the fact that they did have 26 episodes, they had more time to fresh out the characters, especially with All Stars being the next season, and I feel honestly, if they had done like okay, if they didn't want to do 26 episodes, maybe just have it be like say 18 episodes, so that that way you've still got like the shorter length, but you've got more time. You've got those 5 extra episodes to develop more of the characters.
I think the whole 13 episode thing was more of a network thing rather than them. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but I think the new length is more like executive meddling.
Yeah. But at the same time, the fact that it was 13 episodes meant that I was not bored watching this season. Whereas with the other seasons, there were times where I was just like, "Oh, come on, move it up." Especially World Tour when it was like they brought back Duncan just for the love triangle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe
so
me
it's just like,
that
yeah. But with this season, we've got a entirely new cast of characters. So um, obvious standouts for me with this season were Joe, Brig, Sam and Dakota, Mike, Zoe, and Scott. Oh, and Dawn as well. Can't forget Dawn. And it's crazy to think that because she on all the posters that I've seen of Revenge of the Island, even before this season, you see B in Owen's position of like front and center. So you would think that he would be like a more prominent figure in this season.
yeah, but he kind of takes on the support role, like how he is in the poster with Cameron on top of his shoulders.
Yeah, yeah. But
Which is
even then, Owen did that with
okay.
with Izzy at some points as well, because you see Izzy on his shoulder at times in the posters.
Fair enough. But now to go over some of the other contestants that Luke did not mention. We have
No.
Lightning,
Oh,
the love child
okay,
between Lindsay and Tyler.
okay,
Uh,
and it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that because there is one point in the season where something happens where you heard me just pause and then just laugh my ass off. We'll get to it when it
Yeah.
happens.
Uh,
But yeah, go ahead.
we also have Anne Maria, the Jersey Shore reject, who is obsessed with hairspray and spray on tans.
With
We
her
have.
hair. Oh, go ahead. Carry on.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, with her hairspray, that is it's kind of funny because obviously we have Cameron in this season who is voiced by the same guy who plays Ethan in Power Rangers Dino Thunder, who has the civilian power of armored skin, and her hair is basically that power.
Yeah, I don't know what's in that hairspray, but her hair might as well be able to deflect bullets.
Yeah, which by the way, put her in a death battle. Who would you put her up against? I mean, I guess you could put her up against Futaba from Mission Yosakura family. I don't know why, but I just go ahead.
We could also put her up against a Rampardos from Pokemon. You know,
I guess we could.
Or Ulti from One Piece, because Pachycephalosauruses.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Have that be the case.
Next up, we have Stacy, the cannot shut the hell up.
Who?
Stacy.
Who? No. Her name's not Stacy. Her name is Whiny Mac. Her name is Whiny Mac Know It All.
Okay, we have Whiny Mac Know It All, the entity who is not capable of shutting the hell up.
Yes. So yeah, I'm obviously doing that as a joke because her whole character is so bad that everyone, even like the most patient of patient people in that series, like Dawn and B, even they were like, yeah, let's just get rid of her.
We also, I don't know if you mentioned Cameron already. Well, you did mention Cameron, but
yeah,
Cameron is the specky nyag who has never experienced real life because he grew up in a bubble.
Yeah, which is kind of an interesting character trait. The boy in the bubble. But I don't know. I honestly would want to believe that his parents at least let him go outside at one point in his life.
Oh, he could go outside in the bubble.
Yeah. So it's not. I don't think it's not like he's never experienced life. It's just that he's never been out of his bubble before.
Yeah. Which honestly makes me ask, how did they get the bubble out of a door?
I guess the door. I guess they sort of like squeeze the bubble. Oh, I lost Tyler quickly. He's back. Yeah. So I guess they kind of like squeeze the bubble through the doors and then just slid it through. I guess that's how they did it.
I guess, but with depending on how much force they put on that bubble, they could have risked turning Cameron into a human pinball.
They could have done. They really could have done. So
unless they have like someone like one person outside, one person inside.
Yeah.
Or some shit. But yeah. Anyways, to briefly go over the characters that Luke had mentioned, Joe is basically the kind of like Eva, except has better social skills. I think she's also based on like that one gym teacher from Glee. Scott is a conniving dirt farmer who sniffs his own armpits, and also fills the role of main villain.
Which I've got to say, Scott, as a follow-up to somewhat like the manipulative Alejandro, I thought he did a really good job because Alejandro was more of like the undercover, sneaky manipulator, whereas Scott was like the overtly I am so obviously manipulating you. But the thing that worked to Scott's advantage in this season was that was that everyone was just spilling the beans about their secrets, so he could use that to his advantage anyway.
It does beg the question on how nobody except B, Dawn, and Cameron can catch on to what the hell Scott is doing. And but one argument against Scott because he's a little too obvious.
Yeah.
Like even Sam is like, hey, what are we doing? But he doesn't. But the neurons don't connect to be like, wait, Scott's trying to sabotage us.
Well, I guess because he's doing it so obviously that they're kind of like, yeah, he's not really manipulating us. It's kind of like that joke in the film Spaceballs where they go, so the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the stupidest combination I've ever heard in my life. And I'm like, no, that's so stupid. No one would ever think of it. I feel like that's kind of like what Scott's going for, is that he's being so obvious in his manipulation that people are thinking like, yeah, he's not really manipulating us.
Oh, so it's like,
Yeah,
basically it's more of a sense of like, wait, what? Scott's trying to sabotage us? Nah, that'd be dumb.
I guess it's more of I guess it's more of like what you're trying to say is more of like a reverse psychology.
Yeah.
So that's
So,
kind
hey,
of like what it's going for.
So I guess Scott's an undercover genius on the likes of Izzy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Izzy, we get cameos from the original crew, from the original contestants in this season. Some of which generally did surprise me.
Anyways, onto the newer characters. We got Zoe and Mike. Zoe being her label being the indie chick, even though doesn't really like mean anything. Her shtick is that she was very lonely and never really had the chance to make friends, and she's basically a giant people pleaser.
Yeah, which Mike, honestly, I'm just gonna say honestly with Zoe's character, I can really relate to her in the sense of just the fact that growing up I had very awkward social skills because obviously I'm autistic, so that's going to be an issue, and I'm always like worried at times, even to this day, like, am I saying something that gets people to think like, oh, keep away from Luke? I always get that feeling that everything that I'm saying is going to have a negative effect sometimes.
That's so totally fair.
I can relate to Zoe. And yeah, and obviously we've got Mike as well, who or is it Chester, or is it because what Mike has in this season is and I did look at this on his Wikipedia page. They did admit that if it was being written today, Mike would have been written more appropriately for people with what they describe him as having.
Yeah, so Mike has dissociative identity disorder. So basically, depending on certain external stimuli, other alters will come in front. He has Chester, the cranky old man, Svetlana, the Russian gymnast, Vito, the Italian American tough guy, and Manitoba Smith, the Australian explorer. Even though Manitoba is a city in Canada.
Yeah.
But basically, how they handle Mike is about as good as Toko from Danganronpa 1. Not Ultra Despair Girls, Danganronpa 1. If you've played Danganronpa 1, or hell, you watch the anime you'd probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. The way I compared it when I was watching it is that Mike reminded me of like that era because it was around this era where like the anime reviewers were starting to come, like the anime or like the basically the big reviewers were coming up where they would be like we want to create alternate personalities. And the way I came to the conclusion of how to describe Mike would basically be like from that era of YouTube. So like the era of like when you would have Nostalgia Critic with all his different characters, or Tekken 101 with all his different characters. That sort of like characterization.
Which, if that's what they were going for, that is a terrible way to portray DID. And
yeah,
even the writers admitted, like you said, like the writers admitted that they did a terrible job at writing DID, and kudos for them for recognizing their mistakes.
Yeah,
it's just kind of a shame that I would give like a good example of how to write DID. However, I have not come across a good portrayal of DID. Mostly because I don't have DID. I don't know what exactly entails a good portrayal of DID. All I know is the how not to do it, being here Aaron Toko from Danganronpa.
Yeah.
And it only gets worse in All Stars.
Oh Lord, have mercy on our souls.
Focusing on revenge.
Okay.
Mike did have we move on to Brick, who is a military cadet.
And he embodies that to the T.
Yeah, like and like he's very honor driven, never leave a man behind. He also but for like the time he spends on the island, he definitely feels extremely fleshed out, because we find out he's into fashion, he's afraid of the dark, he's pissed himself on more than one occasion.
Which, hey, good for him for at least admitting that his more embarrassing situations.
Yeah, because it's only from our lowest moments that we can reach our highest. Honestly, Brick might, on rewatch, Brick might be my favorite character this season.
Oh, he's up there as one of my favorite. I loved him. And I also loved another character which I really wish got more screen time, Dawn. Which, if you look at her, and regardless of how you think about the author who created this franchise, this is just for point of reference. Even the wiki acknowledges this. Dawn is basically Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter. Like, if you just look at her, look at a picture of Luna Lovegood, you're like, yeah, no, we know what they were going for with this.
Yeah, so Dawn is basically the animal whisperer. She can read auras. Probably has some form of supernatural abilities, because she can move forward without taking a step.
Yeah.
Which
so I'm just gonna send you a picture of Luna Lovegood into Discord, and tell me you don't see the resemblance. So
just gotta be careful lest I get kicked out.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
yeah, you know what they were doing with that character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking, or rather lack thereof speaking, we also have
B. He was too OP for his own good.
Yeah, B is like the silent genius. Like, he comes up with these like super like elaborate ways to help out his team, and like his whole thing is that he doesn't talk. And as a kid watching Revenge, because like I think Revenge came out in like 2011 in the States, so I was like around 8 years old. I was obsessed with B. I don't know why, but
I think it was just because of the fact that like Owen, B is not like the skinniest type of guy in the type of guy. So the fact that someone like that, I feel like you gravitate more towards because it was like representation of how you looked, wasn't it?
I suppose because B is also like the big dude of the season, and like I gravitate towards Owen because he was super. He was also the big dude, but at the same time, he showed that he was more than just the fat guy who eats and farts. And B takes that to another extreme. Like, he shows that big dudes could be the big dudes can be smart, could be the smart silent type.
Yeah,
and
even towards the end of his run, which was short, he still maintained that. Even though everyone was getting everyone, and by everyone I mean Scott and Chris, were getting him annoyed because they now knew what his real name was, what the B actually stands for.
But then we have Dakota, who is based on Paris Hilton. She's a standard child actress who doesn't really care about the money because her family's rich, but she's coming onto the show because she wants a spin-off reality series.
Which, hey, by the end of her run on this season, I want to see that spin-off with her and her significant other in the series.
Speaking of, we have Sam, the Seth Rogen gamer.
Yeah, how much now that we've seen like the series and know like what happens to Dakota, which we'll get into when we get into analyzing the episodes, how much do you want to see now a spin-off of Dakota and Sam?
I wouldn't mind it, but it's probably not high on the priorities of Fresh TV.
Okay, fair. No. Actually, you know what they need to do for a for like say a total drama reunion series? Have it be battle of the couples. So you like have all the couples from all the seasons battle it out for $1 million.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. But so then we would have Lashana and Harold, and I am gonna make them a canon couple by that if that series ever comes out.
Which funny that you mentioned that because we also got an announcement that the reboot is coming over to the States June 1st. Please be sure to go watch the reboot. Definitely go watch it while it's airing, even if it's on in the background, because this way we're supporting the creators, and hopefully we can get a third season of the reboot.
Hopefully a third season that I would say definitely needs to be a reunion season.
We're probably going to be following the reboot cast again, but who knows? Maybe this season could be like a world tour type, where it's bringing in the reboot cast plus some new characters, and hopefully like a new setting.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we'll get into that later.
Yeah. But I think we've covered everything with all the characters this season. That the new ones.
Yep. So,
yeah. And I did put this in. Actually, I did put this in the description. Sorry to cut you off there, Tyler. But yeah,
No
forget
worries.
about jumping the shark in this season. In this season, the shark jumps you, for better or worse, because this is where total drama goes from the realms of semi-realistic to full on. Okay, this is too far fetched, even by total drama standards, because Chris has sold out the island to a biohazard company that's spilling toxic waste that's mutating all the animals.
And from like a pure world building standpoint, I do like this idea. It's putting a spin on a classic location. Plus, it does give good, decent ideas for obstacles in which our campers can encounter. From a
Yeah.
story perspective, you might as well be turning Chris McClane into Monokuma.
Oh, definitely.
If I had a
The
nickel for
only
every
thing
time I reference Danganronpa,
you're only saying that because you're voicing Monokuma in a fan project.
I mean, one, I am, but secondly, I'm not the only one to make that connection.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, even Death Battle have made that connection, which is why the Death Battle fandom has, which is why if you go on the Death Battle fandom wiki, they have Chris McClane going up against Monokuma and Duncan going up against Mystery Man. Okay, but yeah, so getting into the episodes proper. So how do we start off this season? Why? By saying, hey, here's all the old characters. I bet you want to see them again. Too bad they're not here. Here's the new guys. And how are we going to get them on this island? By blowing up the boat.
And forcing them all to swim. Yeah. Which segues into episode one, bigger, better, brutal Earth.
And uncut. I'm sorry, I had to make the South Park reference there. Bigger, longer, and uncut.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. So. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say You go.
Okay. We see in this segment for all the characters swimming. We see Enrita wanting to beat the shit out of Chris, which, hey, that's not for Luke. That's just Tuesday.
Yes.
We see Joe and Lightning kind of flaunting their physical capabilities, with Joe just pushing everybody out of the way, and Lightning lifting Cameron from the water, with the latter not being able to swim, as he lands on a rock while Scott leaves him to drown. Smooth move, Scott. Bravo.
Smooth move, Scott. Which, by the way, now you know what? Now that I've realized it, Joe is pretty much what I think of when I think of what Eva should have been all along, in the sense that she's athletic, she's aggressive, but not and she can be rude at times, but not mean per se.
I mean, Eva isn't necessarily mean. She just kind of has an anger problem. Okay, she can be mean. She nearly bit off Cody's hand.
Yeah, but you can see why I'm making that connection. Like Joe being a less hulkish version of Eva. There we go.
Yeah, she's Eva, but with social skills.
Yeah, that's it. But one line in this episode that made me question where Joe was from was she's saying, excuse me, stay out of my way if you value your Kiwis. And I was just thinking, like, wait, is Joe meant to be from New Zealand?
And to which I rebut, no, because Kiwis is just how they refer to to testicles. I believe even Owen has like said the Kiwis,
Okay. Okay.
referring to his family jewels. Yeah. Ironically, one of the episodes where Owen did it was Australia.
Yeah. And also Bee's aura, according to Dawn, is purplish green, which, by the way, yeah, she has to have some sort of like superpower because she can read people's auras.
She can see the future.
Yeah, she can see the future.
But we see Stacy drowning, which
for everyone, everyone would win in that situation.
And we see Mike and Zoe go to rescue her, and with them being, oh no, you go first. You go first. Like, someone is drowning. Why is there this? Oh, you go first. Bullshit. This is somebody's life on the line.
Tyler, it's love at first sight. It's love at first sight.
Oh, love at first sight is bullshit.
And Tyler, remember what you were saying to me during it? It's a cartoon.
Yeah, fair enough. But Stacy pulls Mike underwater, possibly in an attempt to murder him. That's a joke. So then Zoe saves both Mike and Stacy to where we get my. Go ahead.
Well, even if Stacy was attempted to kill, she'd be like, "Oh, my great uncle's father's cousin's nephew's former roommate is very knowledgeable in CPR. He'll be all right." Yeah, this is why everybody hates Stacy in this season. All she does for this one episode she's in is just go, "Oh, my." Insert random extended family member is good at all this stuff or invented this thing or oh, my great grandfather invented swimming. I'm just there like, ugh, like, really? This was the best they could do?
Yeah, and based on her title of the compulsive liar, she's completely full of shit.
Yeah, she is.
But we then get the first confessionals of the season with Mike being really into Zoe and Zoe being really into the fact that she's in the total drama confessional with all the flies.
Yeah. Which, by the way, later on in the season, someone actually gets one of those flies in their mouths, and when that happened, I'm like, wow! It took them 4 whole seasons to get to this point.
Yeah, I like that fly too. His name was Tony. Poor
No. His name. His name was Austin Jason. He was too good for this world that he had to be banished from it. If you get what I'm referencing there, you get a cookie.
Ha ha ha. But anyways, we see Joe make it to shore with Dawn beating her there without a sprinkle of water on her. To which she said she used a shortcut. A shortcut where? Did you just pull a fucking Moses, Dawn?
No. What she did, because she's a wizard, she's based on a Harry Potter character, she levitated herself. That was the shortcut. It's obvious she is a wizard.
Or she pulled a Jesus and walked on the surface of the water, being like,
probably. I wouldn't put it past, or because she's surrounded by. No. You know what she did? She did Gomamon from Digimon's Attack, marching fishes, and just got all the fishes into a pile and used them as a raft. Because she's always talking to animals as well. She's basically like DJ as well in this season.
We then also see You take it from here. I gotta take a phone.
Okay, so we also see Anne-Marie's hairspray being okay. I compared this to Eisen to in Bleach, where Eisen just slits his hair back, and it's just like so epic that you cannot see Eisen's hair, and it's just like how much hair gel did he have to use to keep that straight? Because her hair gel or her hairspray just defies the laws of physics. Like it is basically just like a bulletproof shield.
I mean, it is stated that the hairspray does waterproof her hair. It also did Cameron's lungs, but
I just don't I just find that funny. But anyway, when they get to the island, we see that one of the cabin. I do believe it's in this episode where we see like the new cabin, isn't it? The first episode.
Yeah. We see a new cabin that will have a more like a prominent appearance in All Stars.
Which, hey, the All Stars is sounding like to be a really good season, Tyler.
Oh, you have no idea.
Note my sarcasm based on what you've told me about it, and based on what I've heard in the vibe of it. Like it is often considered the worst season when it could have been the best.
The worst season either between that or Pocateo Island.
Can we just call them season 5 and season 6?
Yes, we could call them seasons 5 and 6 because that's what most of the community does. That's what we're doing. Okay,
right. So the challenge this time, the first challenge is totem bomb serving. Totem. This is a mouthful to say. Totem bomb surfing, where Chris has bombs attached to these totems that they have to defuse and then use them as surfboards to slide down a hill.
Yep. This is also where the two teams are formed. We have the Toxic Rats, consisting of Lightning, Scott, B, Dawn, Lightning, Scott, B, Dawn, Dakota, Sam, and Stacy, and the Mutant Maggots, consisting of Joe, Brick, Zoe, Mike, Cameron, and Anne Maria. But basically, they have to get the totems to where the cabins are in 7 minutes before they explode.
Which, yeah, if that doesn't sound like a Duncan Roper challenge, I don't know what is.
But they're also hanging from are being suspended by a rope. But from a tree, which gotta say those gotta be some strong ass trees. I don't know, maybe mutant trees.
Yeah, considering that there's a mutant tree later on in the series, it doesn't surprise me.
But we see the maggots get a trampoline to help them in the challenge, while the rats get a hacksaw.
Yeah, we do see like Cameron's nerdiness come in handy here, because he uses the trajectory of the trampoline to figure out like, okay, my weight versus this trampoline, how much like leverage will I need? And then Joe tries to do the exact same. It's Joe who tries to do the exact same thing, and he's there like, no, this is only for my weight.
No, he was calculating for Joe's weight, but then Anne Maria tried to.
Oh yeah.
Tried the trampoline and just hit the bottom of the totem pole before Joe kicks the trampoline out of the way to where Anne Maria hits the ground.
Yeah, so that was kind of funny that she was like, "Oh, let's just do it." Like, no, we're trying to work it out for one person, not you.
And then while we see Lightning trying to climb a tree to no avail, we see B cooking up a scheme using the power of a seesaw. Him and Keo from V3 would be very good friends. So we basically B's plan is to launch members of his team via seesaw, so that they land on each other's shoulders, so that they can reach the rope with the toe. So they can reach the rope that the totem is on, so they can cut the rope. As for the maggots, we see Brick jump, use the trampoline and get caught dangling from a hatchet that's on the bottom of it, as he screams for help. And this is where we get introduced to one of Mike's alters, Chester, who comes out in whenever Mike is feeling extreme levels of frustration.
And Chester is the stereotypical old man that you say, like, "Oh, you kids these days and your Millennium items and your card games and your hula hoops and your hopscotch."
You do. Chains and their totem poles and their and their toxic waste. Back in my day, if we wanted to have fun and get dangerously hurt, we went into the factory.
What factory did Chester go into to have fun?
He didn't. I just made something up on the fly.
Okay. All right. So yeah. And eventually, it's the toxic rats that get that Dakota's on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she ends up getting on top of the team with the hacksaw, and she's just there like, "How do I cut this thing?" And then we have I believe it's Sam who said, or it's Sam who says, "Pretend it's like a steak knife."
That was Dawn. Sam is just like, "Teeth down, Dakota."
Okay, yeah. And then we have Dawn say, "Pretend it's a steak knife," and she uses that to cut the rope, and they get the advantage then because I believe they're the first to actually cut it.
Actually, no, it's actually the maggots, because we got there was a radioactive squirrel. There was one of the laser squirrels that shoots lighting out of its eyes, and Chester accidentally throws a rock at it, which causes it to terrorize the maggots. But before one of its lasers bounces off of Brick's face and hits the rope.
Okay.
Which brings down the totem, and then the maggots go surfing. But the rats are not too far behind.
Yeah, so it's kind of neck and neck for the most part.
Yeah. It's also here where we get a cameo from Owen, in which Chris drops the bombshell that he's not competing this year. And then Chris orders Chef to put a bomb on Owen's face.
Which, how does that not kill Owen? Or does he just eat the bomb?
Well, it's probably visibly damaged, but
yeah,
this
goes, go ahead.
This goes into my theory that Owen is a cosmic being who seeks to consume all, like Galactus.
Hey, that's not a bad theory.
Wait. He's probably best friends with Kirby or some shit.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Owen is best friends with Kirby, but this leads into like one of my like, oh my god, Chris is going off the deep end moments. I thought Chris liked Owen.
Hey, hey, he'll do anything as long as either someone gets hurt or the ratings go up.
Yeah, but to do that to Owen, yeah, it's a little bit of a dick move of Chris. Well, no, it's not a little bit. It's a big dick move of Chris. So we have the toxic rats first arriving and planting the totem on the stump that it's meant to be at. But then we have the mutant maggots come in and use their totem to destroy the cabin, the brand new cabin,
with an 8-person hot tub and air conditioning.
which Chris obviously got from the plane in the last season.
The hot tub was destroyed last season.
No. Chris, I imagine off screen somehow got it protected and got it sent back to the island.
But somehow this means the maggots win because they're the only team with the cabin still standing, which is bullshit because the rats should have won because they were the team who brought their totem first and defused the bomb.
But remember, Tyler, Chris breaks his own rules all the time.
Yeah, he basically breaks his own rules once every hour.
And
he brings back...
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because in the elimination, which by the way, thank God there's an elimination each episode in this season, because it just allowed again for things to just keep moving at a more rapid pace, like at least keeps things interesting. But yeah, the only reason I think Chris made the Toxic Rex lose in this is because he probably knew that, oh my god, Stacey's going to be another Serena, another Sierra. We need to get rid of her ASAP.
I like that headcanon. I am now taking that on.
Yeah, I am taking that on as well. That is my opinion, and I'm sticking to it because you know how even Sierra annoyed Chris with her just constant fact checking to the point that even he was like getting angry at her. So you imagine, like, oh my god, this
because she was bringing up embarrassing stuff about Chris, like how he had a cooking show that was canceled after one episode, or that he was a part of an '80s band, or how he made cat videos.
Yeah, but anyway, I can imagine him just being like, I need to get rid of this girl before she says something like, oh, did you know that my great grand uncle's nephew's cousin was best friends with Chris's great grandfather, and how they have baby pictures of Chris? I could just imagine her saying something like that, and Chris being like, "Right, we need to get rid of her ASAP."
Which they do because Stacey definitely got the most votes, and received a new little item called the Toxic Marshmallow of Loserdom, which is a marshmallow that was exposed to the toxic waste. When Stacey holds it in her hands, she loses all of her hair.
Mm-hmm.
And the way she goes home is in the hurl of shame. Don't know if the patent's still pending on that.
Which is just basically a catapult.
Yep. And as she was about to spew one more fact, Chris sends her flying.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, overall, pretty a pretty solid start to the season. We got ideas of what the new characters are like, and we got rid of the worst character right off the bat.
Yep. Moving on to episode 2, Truth or Laser Shark.
And with a title like that, naturally it's going to involve a panda. No, I'm just kidding. It involves a shark. So we get introduced to a new reoccurring character of the season in Fang, who becomes the bane of Scott's existence.
Yep, because so basically how the Scott and Fang rivalry starts is that well, I have to explain the first challenge. The first challenge involves humiliating trivia about each of the contestants, like how Sam let out a giant ass blast on a first date, how Brick pissed himself on the first and last day of school, and how B's name is actually Beverly.
Oh no, we can't mention that. We can't have B being embarrassed even more.
Yeah, and because B didn't give a verbal response, again, this is the guy who doesn't talk. Chris decides to penalize the rats by dunking them. And this is where we meet Fang. Fang nearly vores Scott, but Scott manages to escape and it pulls a shark tooth literally out of his ass.
Yeah, which caused. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Yeah, which causes Fang to develop a rivalry because he wants his tooth back, even though he's a shark and sharks can grow teeth back naturally. So why would Fang be that pissy about it?
My theory is that the toxic waste kind of hampered his ability to grow his teeth back in exchange for legs.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, the challenge in this episode, seriously, Chris, literally almost drowning the contestants. Like, what kind of total wipeout Japanese game show is this?
Oh, just wait till you watch this Venture Camp. They basically do a worse version of this chap. Well, I say worse and more so the secrets that are revealed, but we'll get to that after we're done with Total Drama and after a brief break from reality spoofs.
Yeah. A brief break from reality spoofs to talk about something else. Which, by the way, we need at some point we need to decide like what we're actually going to talk about next.
Yeah, that's a good point. But moving forward, everybody complains about the challenge because Scott nearly got eaten alive. Mike doesn't want his DID being put on blast. So their complaining goes on for so long that they run out of time, and so Chris decides to move on to the second challenge, the Mad Skills obstacle course, which I wouldn't be surprised was supposed to be an homage to Harold in the name.
I think it actually is. Let me look it up. Let me go on the wiki. Mad Skills Challenge Total Drama. Truthful Laser. The Mad Skills obstacle course. So general trivia. Yeah. According to Todd Kaufman, which is one of the staff members, one of the directors, Harold was originally supposed to make a cameo in the season, but it was cut from the final release due to the episode's reference to him. It's highly likely that this would have been the one featuring him because it does say the obstacle course named includes the term "mad skills," which is a phrase often said by Harold. So yeah, it was.
Oh, okay. Or at least it was
it's a shame. Yeah, it's a shame Harold didn't get a cameo in this season because I would have honestly loved to have known, like, did him and Lashawna hook up eventually?
I mean, hell, like, outside of the cameo he makes it in the first episode, we never see Harold again.
Yeah. And he's seen there dancing with Lashana. So my headcanon is that after World Tour, Lashana was just like, you know what? You know what? Harold is a nice guy, and it wouldn't be too bad to be with him. So she probably decided to give him a chance.
Hmm. Whether that chance worked out or not continues to be a mystery.
Yeah, I am going to say it did. I'm going to say Harold finally got the girl, because if Sam can get the girl, Harold can get the girl.
Okay. But anyways, initially the loser of the first challenge was gonna wear glasses that would hamper their vision. But since the challenge went uncompleted, everybody has to wear them.
Yeah, everyone that is except Scott, because he is an
Well,
obvious cheater.
yeah, he goes the Duncan route of cheating and just putting on the glasses just high enough to where he can still see. Because I forgot to mention, this episode is also where Scott's strategy is revealed. He is sabotaging his own team to give the maggots a false sense of security before he picks them off.
Which, hey, it's a sound strategy. Yeah,
The only
make
problem is
make
he's
it.
constantly putting himself in danger to make that happen.
Yeah, but hey, it's a good idea in theory. Make your enemies feel a false sense of security before you pick them off one by one.
But
But yeah, also in this
I
episode,
raised how he's supposed to pick off the maggots if his own team is in shambles.
yeah, yeah. But also in this episode, we have the start of Dakota and Sam's romance, because of the fact that they both have something in common of them being the tech savvy ones, and they get their tech taken away from them, so they both have withdrawal syndrome. So now they're like, wow, we have to actually talk to people.
Yeah, yeah. We also got in terms of the obstacle course. We have Lightning and Anna Maria getting kicked by a boot, which is called the kickstart. We then have the Cannonball Run being performed by Dawn and Brick, Scott and Joe going through Wrecking Ball Alley, which is basically a rotating cylinder with a giant wrecking ball swinging through. We have the Gangplank being performed by B and Zoe, which is basically small platforms being gnawed at by rabid mutant beavers. We have the Bouncing Agony of Double Trouble, which is basically the big balls from Wipeout, except they also shift up and down. And then we have the Grand Slam, being performed by Dakota and Cameron, where they have to swing on a rope to land into a giant baseball mitt. All this
Yeah,
while wearing those glasses and passing off
a
their mascots.
yeah, which is a toxic rat and a mutant maggot. And I've got to say, Tyler, I still would take the rat over the maggot, because the thing is, I've held rats before, because my sister used to have pet rats, so I've held them before. So I would rather have held the rat than the maggot, because it's a maggot.
It also vomits in your face.
Yes. Whereas the rats would just bite you, but if you know how to handle rats, you'll be fine. Which is what B does. B does. He simply just puts the rat in his pocket.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you also have to risk like super rabies or like the super plague.
Yeah, yeah, but I imagine that once they get off this island, they're all going to they're all going to pay the $1 million in whichever ending to be like, right, we need to get ourselves decontaminated.
Yeah, one giant decontamination shower for everyone.
Yeah. So
Uh,
Um, so in this episode, it looks like Dakota is going to win it for the toxic rats, but of course, because she's a Paris Hilton lookalike, her paparazzi has to come in and ruin it.
yep. And then Cameron wins it for the maggots.
Yeah. So because of that, Dakota ends up getting the boot, or shall I say, the swinging catapult. Which,
Yep.
when I first saw this, I legitimately put like, Dakota and Sam's romance, shame romance was short lived, but oh boy, was I wrong. Was I proven wrong? Because I will say this, their relationship is probably one of the most wholesome, positive relationships in the whole franchise.
I can get down with that.
Yeah.
But
We'll get to it when the episode actually happens.
yeah, in the meantime, we have episode 3, Ice Ice Baby, aka copyright infringement.
Yeah. So, Vanilla Ice, don't sue us.
Yeah, which starts with a which starts with a map. The challenge here starts off with each team needing to climb Mount Looming Tragedy. While Chef is throwing giant ice blocks, they can either go freehand or they can use stuff in a junk pile being guarded by a giant mutant beetle.
Which
That brings
Dawn,
fire.
which Dawn is able to tame because she reunites the offspring of the beetle with it.
Yeah, which was apparently in Lightning's breakfast.
Yeah.
Don't know how it ended up there, but
Oh, and also in this episode, Sam proves why the recorder is the most useless instrument ever. Like,
yep.
like how I don't know about you, Tyler, but over here, spent so many years learning how to play the recorder, and it's like, how often have I needed to bust out the recorder? I don't know about you.
We only have to spend one school year learning the recorder, thankfully.
Oh no! I was involved in a music school where the recorder was very prominent. Granted, I did also play the clarinet, which was much better.
And I played the bass, which is also much better than both.
Hey, don't diss the wind instruments. Don't diss the wind instruments.
I'm not. I have a buddy who played the saxophone in marching band, but then again, he also played the bass.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to learn how to play the saxophone or saxophone. Simpsons reference there. So yeah, once we get past the looming tragedy race, we find out that the other challenge in this episode is basically just a ice fort capture the flag style challenge. Where Scott thinks like, oh, the castle, that's obviously a trick. We're going into the obviously worse off situation, which turns out to be the obviously worst situation.
I mean,
but
if you think about it.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Think about it like this. Because the shack is lower, they have an easier time firing the projectiles they're using in the challenge, being snowballs that they have to fling off the handle of a shovel catapult style. And because the castle is bigger, that means it's a bigger target. Because the two ways you can win is either destroy the enemy's fort or capture the enemy flag and bring it back to your own fort. Because the castle may seem nicer, but it's also a bigger target.
Yeah. And B cleverly exploits that because it's like, wait, there's a mirror here. The sun's coming out. Oh, we'll just use the sun and the mirror to melt the castle.
Yep. Until it looks like they're about to win, in which Scott sabotages B's mirror plan by reflecting it off of Sam, who got frozen in a river.
Yeah. And Scott saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, Beverly."
Yep. And unfortunately,
also,
this is where. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, like, the snowballs in this episode, I legitimately put them like the snowballs are basically Daddy Bird's presence attack, so it can either hurt you or be a reward for you.
Yeah, and this is also where we see the giant mutant beetle and its offspring again.
Mm-hmm.
But the maggots end up winning again. And Scott somehow manages to convince all of his team to vote out B, which Lightning and Sam I can get, but Dawn, why Dawn?
Dawn, Zoe, and Anne-Marie. Why?
Well, we'll get to Zoe and Anne-Maria later, but Dawn's able to read minds and auras.
Yeah.
So she can confirm whether or not Scott's lying.
Yeah. So in this, so it was obvious why they did this. It was obvious why they got rid of B. I think even the writers knew, like, B, if he was still in the season, it wouldn't be a mystery about who was going to win, because if B had stayed in the season, he would have dominated all the challenges. He was too, like I said, he was too OP for his own good. So they had to get rid of him in order to make the tension of who was going to be in the finale more tense at that front. Because I guarantee, like I said, if it got to the finale, it would have come down to B for someone else, and B would have just swept it.
Yeah. Which does give me the idea of like a rematch season, like how they did in the reboot. To kind of give B kind of shine.
So it was kind of like what I was saying there, like a character just was too OP in the reboot that they had to make a rematch season.
Well, it was so that like some characters got spotlight in season 1, they became first boots in season 2. Where some people were first boots in season 1, they got more time to shine in season 2.
Okay, that makes sense. And as B is going to speak, before his first words are uttered, Chris is like, "Yep, time's up. See you, B."
Yep.
And this is where, after being kicked in the last episode, Dakota is back because her daddy basically brought her back into the season, but now she has to be an intern for Chris, which I feel is a lot worse than actually being in the challenges.
Exactly. Because based on like how Chris treats his interns in later seasons, it might as well be indentured servitude.
Hey, based on how he treated them in World Tour, remember, he purposely killed one of his interns.
Well, or at the very least, attempted murder.
No. He purposely had those scarabs on standby. Chef knocked over the phase. One of his interns was shredded to the bone, so he is and like they say, who's the employee here? Me. And who is responsible for you? It's always going to be the manager or the boss that's always going to be responsible for the employee. Chris is responsible for the intern, so Chris is responsible for that intern's death.
Oh, I was thinking of the wrong intern. I was thinking of the intern that was thrown out of the plane in Greece.
No, I was, the intern that I'm thinking of, the intern that literally got straight to the bone. Yes, that's who I was referring to. So Chris is liable for the murder of that intern.
But anyways, we also have.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say. Anyways, this is where I was like, oh, great, we can finally have the continuation of Sam and Dakota's relationship. Because the reason why I love this relationship so much is because it's just like so polarizing. Like, you have because Sam is like the spotty, geeky kind of character, and Dakota's like the prim and popular one. You wouldn't think those two get together, but no, they actually make it work.
Yeah, and it's like through Dakota's internship with Chris, she actually gains more human characteristics, like feeling sorry for people.
Which, the fact that it takes Chris to change a Paris Hilton style person into that, like, I guess Chris is good for something.
Yeah. We also, it's also in this but basically, the episode's challenge involves a scavenger hunt at night through to look for clues and souvenirs to reach an end goal.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, yeah.
A gigantic mutated spider.
Yeah. So this is episode 4 we're talking about. Because I don't know if you mentioned it. Yeah, because I don't know if you mentioned that, because Dakota came back at the end of episode 3. So yeah, just thought I'd bring that up. But yeah, Brig, we learn in this episode that Brig is scared of the dog, and he pees his pants again. And I literally put here, Brig would hate the darkness devil in Chainsaw Man.
Absolutely. Devils are like the representation of fears and phobias.
Yeah. But yeah, and this is where I was like, Chris Booby chats on Minefield, like, what the hell, Chris? And you said, wow, we haven't heard that in a while. Well, it's glad to be back. It's glad to bring that back.
Mm-hmm. We also learned that Cameron's afraid of spiders, and after the mention of a gigantic mutated spider,
which starts picking off everyone one by one.
Yep. It goes after Dawn first, which honestly kind of convenient.
Yeah. And in this episode, we learned that the tree is mutated, like it's kind of like a squid octopus hybrid sort of thing.
Yeah, and like it beats the shit out of Lightning and Sam. And that, but then it's in that tree where the first souvenir is located, that being a key. And then Lightning gets nabbed by the spider. So now it's just Scott and Sam for the remainder of the episode.
Yeah. And by the end of the episode, Cameron gets over his fear because he's so scared that he gets an adrenaline rush and starts beating the crap out of the spider.
Yep. But before that, we see Zoe get nabbed by the spider, and the rivalry between Brick and Joe, which was alluded to in previous episodes, fully start to blossom. As Joe is like, okay, she's missing, let's go. And then Brick's like, hey, that's against the code. Never leave a man behind. And I really like the rivalry between Brick and Joe.
Yeah, it's kind of like one wants to win by any means necessary versus one that wants to win with honors.
Yeah. Not
Yeah,
to, it helps that I like Brick and Joe to begin with, and have
yeah, same here, same here. But also in this episode, it starts the main love triangle between Anne Marie, Mike, and Zoe because of the fact that one of Mike's personalities comes out here, who basically does a Justin Alejandro, where it's like, oh, I take off my shirt, and Anne Marie is fawning over him. And the thing that doesn't make any sense here is that Zoe is getting pissy at Mike, but she's not done anything so far to be like, hey, I like you.
well, well, of course not. Like what? Well, like if you meet someone else, nine relationships out of 10 don't start with "Hey, I like you." Like meeting somebody at first glance.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is true. But at the same time, Zoe could take more of initiative if she really did like Mike.
and like Zoe knows that Mike is into her.
Yeah.
And but it's also the case of like Mike being secretive about his DID. Honestly fair, because like that's kind of a big a touchy subject matter, and he's probably been rejected by like other crushes and even friends when he's had to spill this.
Yeah, fair. But at some point, like even Cameron, at some point, is like, you're just gonna have to tell her.
Which Mike isn't ready for that. But
the big twist of this episode is that the spider picking him off was not a real spider; it was Izzy.
Yep.
Which I was.
We also see.
Oh, go ahead.
We also see that. We also see that. It comes down to Brick versus Sam and Scott, and even though Brick makes it first, the Rats win because they lost. They lost a fewer portion of their team, whereas Brick lost 5 members. Sam and Scott only lost 2 members. So this makes the Rats' first episode victory, sending the Maggots to the elimination ceremony.
Which again, yeah. So sorry, I was just gathering my thoughts together. Which again, no one except the intern, that is Dakota, gets eliminated.
Yep, because Brick gets swapped over to the Rats.
Yeah. So, and I guarantee that Chris only got rid of Dakota here again because he was like, well, nobody's getting eliminated, and I want to use the catapult.
But at least Chris gave Dakota a flotation device to bring her back to shore.
Yeah.
Even though it deflated before she was launched.
Yeah. But anyway, now we're moving on to episode 5, Backstabbers Ahoy, which in this episode, we have Brig say Brig. Okay, I believe it was when that Brig Brig like doesn't Brig like to be dominated?
Brick was offered to help Dawn collect firewood, and she states that she doesn't have to help her because Brick was bullied as a child. and she brings up his bladder control issues and a need to be dominated, which is where you stated that Brick is basically Vex.
Yeah, Vex, I love you, but at the same time, I was like, any mention of dominating, I'm like, yeah, it's Vex, especially with this, especially since this is going on the Control Chaos channel. It's no secret that Vex wants to be stepped on.
Yep.
So yeah, I love you, Vex, and I just wanted to make that connection. But yeah, the challenge of this episode is a scuba diving challenge, where the contestants have to pump air into the scuba diving outfits, and who better to demonstrate this than with another cameo from an old contestant? So last episode we had Izzy. This episode, because it's water themed, who do we have? We have Harold. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's Bridget.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, Bridget. Remember what you learned from last time with Alejandro. Don't be fawning over the men here because you have a boyfriend.
I mean,
but go ahead.
I wouldn't worry about that because there isn't much to fawn over when she's busy trying not to become the food of a bipedal shark.
Yeah, fair enough. And in this episode, we have Fang versus Brig, which I imagine Fang doesn't realize that it's not Scott, it's Brig in the scuba diving suit. So he's like, I'm going after him anyway.
I think Fang doesn't care as long as, cause like, dude, he's a fucking shark.
Yeah, but he seems to have more of a thing for Scott than anyone else.
He's probably like, I mean, hey, he's not Scott, but you know what the heck?
Yeah.
Because lightning ends up pumping too much air into Brick's scuba suit, and Fang ends up treating Brick like one of those paddle balls until his air tube detaches and ends up flying after he brings up his team's skis.
Yeah. So and also the mutant maggots are arguing so much that they don't realize that they have that Zoe has her feet on the no, it's not. Yeah, it's Zoe has her feet on the air pump that it's not allowing Joe to get any of the air into her lungs until the very, very last minute.
Well, it's more like Mike is explaining to Zoe that he doesn't remember kissing Anne Maria, and that Mike is really into Zoe, and then Anne Maria pushes Zoe off the air hose, which then starts a fight between Anne Maria and Zoe, which inadvertently causes Mike to lose his shirt, which brings out Vito.
Yeah, which you would think that Zoe, seeing it up close and seeing what's going on, would be able to put two and two together, that this is obviously not Mike talking here.
Maybe she's never seen DID before.
Maybe. But yeah, so the next part of the challenge is that they are in a boat. So like the mutant maggots, because they lost, get a not safe inflatable dinghy. The toxic rats get a speedboat, and they have to fire mutant seagull snakes at target to hit a bell.
Yep.
So we have
and those seagulls are part seagull, part rattlesnake, complete with paralyzing venom.
Yep, complete with paralyzing venom. So we have, for the toxic rats, we have Scott on the gunner. We have Lightning driving, and so we have Sam, Dawn, and Brig basically being the skiers. Whereas for the mutant maggots, we have who is
We
it?
have
Who is
Zoe
it?
driving, Joe
Zoe
Golding.
driving, Joe Gooding, Anne Maria, Cameron, and Vito skiing.
Yep, and the way Scott sabotages his team this time is by is basically just wasting the rat's shots by either aiming for the target and feigning missing, but he manages to hit the bell on the buoy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he takes out lightning, which makes the venom seem less paralyzing and more like a hallucinogen.
Yeah. So, and in this episode, everyone's stuff is going missing as well, and Scott uses this to his advantage to basically use it to get rid of Dawn, because up until this point, even though Dawn has been like one of the more has been one of the nicer characters, everyone's been very suspicious of her.
Well, actually, it starts with Lightning's protein powder going missing, Joe's whistle, Scott's shark tooth, and Anne Maria's hairbrush going missing, and Scott trying to frame Brick because he's the new guy. But then later on, Scott thinks Dawn has gotten too smart for her own good, so he then pivots to pin the blame on Dawn.
Which is exactly what he did with B. B was too smart for his own good in Scott's eyes, so he had to go.
I mean, Scott literally calls B the explosive expert's mime.
Yeah. So
and
Dawn is gone. She gets the catapult of shame. Never to return again, which is a shame.
Yeah, like it's kind of shocking because like Dawn is apparently a big fan favorite.
Well, I could definitely see that. She's one of my favorites this season.
Fair enough. But hey, I guess she's an example of doing a lot of good with a short amount of time. Which, honestly, I can say that for a lot of the revenge casts. Like they do, for what limited time some of them have, they make the most of it.
Well, with B, he definitely made the most of it with his limited time and limited speech pattern.
Yeah.
Where the only sound we hear coming out of his mouth in the whole season is just the "ah" when he's getting flung.
Yeah. But anyways, time for episode 6, Runaway Model.
Yeah. So this is the episode where I literally, after calling Lightning basically a female Lindsay, guess who shows up? It's Tyler. No, it's Lindsay. As soon as she showed up,
I a male Lindsay.
Yeah, a male. A male Lindsay. But as soon as that happened, Lindsay shows up, and I'm not kidding. Tyler will vouch me on this. I literally paused, froze for 10 seconds, and just laughed my ass off.
Yeah. I could back that up.
Yeah. Because I legitimately did not know that Lindsay was going to be the cameo in this episode. So to see that, I was like, what the? What? No, that is just a coincidence and a half. But yeah, so this episode, Sam is getting so withdrawal from having no games that he's started to hallucinate that he's actually in a game, which, to be fair, he is technically in a game. But Sam, you really need to go outside and touch grass, mate. You really need to do that. So the theme of this challenge is Weird and Wild Fashion Challenge, where Lindsay is the guest of the fashion show where the contestants have to capture one of the creatures and dress them up.
Yep. The maggots managed to capture a maggot that's the size of a beagle, and dress the basically just put where Anne Maria where Anne Maria gives the maggot a backwards hat, a gold chain, and a white jersey. Zoe puts the maggot in a wig and a 1960s go-go dress.
Yep. And Sam, because Dakota actually did find her way back to the island, actually goes up to Dakota and was like, hey, can you give me some fashion tips? And Dakota is actually like, wait, someone actually wants tips from me?
Mm-hmm. And Dakota tells Sam stripes.
But not the kind of stripes he was thinking of.
Yeah, because Brick manages to make a duffel bag bomb that is able to dress anybody immediately, which gotta say, pretty nifty.
Yeah. Also, can you? I've just got to go quickly do something. So, can you keep talking while I be right back in a couple of minutes?
Absolutely. So, on the runway, the rats present a Yeti all in stripes. However, they put the Yeti in horizontal stripes when Dakota meant vertical stripes, saying that horizontal stripes make you look fat. Which is kind of ironic because Sam is wearing a shirt with horizontal stripes, but Dakota never mentions whether horizontal or vertical. So blame of this goes to Dakota, and then a la King Kong, the Sasquatch that the rats dress up kidnaps Lindsay and takes Chris's jetpack all the way to Boney Island, where now they have to rescue Lindsay. And it's here where Scott starts to work on the maggots. His target, Zoe, managing to cry crocodile tears a la Duncan. Or if I really want to make another Danganronpa reference, Kokichioma, and saying that his team voted off Dawn behind his back, and where Zoe feels bad for Scott. All the while he's laughing until a fly flies into his mouth. Poor Austin Jason. He will not be missed.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm back now. So the other notes I had for this episode was Sam basically being in Donkey Kong because Lindsay got kidnapped by the Yeti, who somehow stole Chris's jetpack. So Yeti stealing a jetpack and stealing a Lindsay.
And Sam turning into the Jumpman himself, and as the Yeti throws down barrels, Sam manages to avoid them and smash them with hammers until he loses energy. After getting a burst of adrenaline, the Yeti basically throws him off a bunch of scaffolding.
Yeah.
A maggot's approach is to swoon the Yeti with Joe's natural beauty.
Which, yeah, they do not know. Joe doesn't know what beauty actually is.
Yeah. And thanks to Chester fronting Mike's, with Chester fronting, he manages to make Joe look ridiculous, which causes Brick to pass out, and the Yeti and Lindsay to laugh at her. With
Yeah.
Joe then gives the Yeti a good old Shoryuken, winning the maggots the challenge, and winning Mike a barrage of barrels.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And also in this episode, Sam is the one that unfortunately is given the boots. But also in a post total drama Revenge of the Island from Chris, we find out that Lindsay is on Boney Island talking to beavers. So I get
from what I've heard from Lindsay, those beavers are actually really nice. Them and I are going to be going out for brunch after this.
Huh. Yeah. Well, now moving on to episode 7, and mine is a terrible thing to waste. And this is where we start to see the seeds planting into Chris's downfall at the end of the season because of the fact that the EPA is onto him at this point.
And Chris calls in Operation Doomsday. Oh yeah, and Joe and Scott switch teams too.
Oh yeah, of course. But yeah, as he calls this in, as Dakota is giving him I guess he's trimming his nails, his toenails.
Yeah, his toenails.
Yeah. So yeah, Chris, your time is coming. The time is coming for Chris to be sentenced, which should be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole for the crap he's done. But because this is total drama and he can basically do whatever he wants, he's probably, based on the fact that he's in the next season, not going to be in prison for very long. But yeah, so in this episode, they go through the mines where we get another cameo from a fan favorite character that even Chris loves with all his heart, is Ezekiel, who now is back on the island and is fully turned into Gollum from Lord of the Rings, who is guarding the goat. So yeah, even the Cold and Chris's make a comeback from Total Drama Action.
We also see Ezekiel being in charge of an army of mutant gophers. Another thing that about this mine is that it's storing a bunch of toxic waste to the point where the cast needs to wear chemical badges to measure their exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And after a half hour, they're probably gonna end up with a bad case of death. But luckily for Dakota, she makes it out of there after a 40-minute dip with all her hair gone.
Mm-hmm. Which is going to come into play later in the next episode.
Yeah. For this episode, Scott is trying to sabotage the maggots, so now he can pick them off after leaving the rats in shambles.
Yeah.
Which honestly is just lucky for Scott, because if he wasn't in that team swap, his team would probably be in fucking shambles.
Oh, absolutely.
And the whole sabotaging thing would only serve to harm him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what would harm people in this season? Chris willing to let everyone die by being like, hey, they're out of time, let's just blow up the mine.
Yeah, because they're also carrying backpacks, which you later find out contains bombs.
Mm-hmm. What the hell, Chris?
Some highlights include Joe and Lightning interacting more, and Lightning still not getting that Joe's a chick and not a guy, but him being an ally to when Joe says that she's never kissed a guy, with Lightning still thinking Joe's a dude.
Yeah.
Gotta love supportive Lightning.
Yeah, gotta love that. Gotta love that. Good on you, Lightning. Even though you really should know that that Joe is a girl. Like it's not not hard to figure out, Lightning.
We also learn that this we also have this is also probably Brick's best episode because he learns to counteract his fear of he learns to counteract the mutant gophers using the power of his stank ass boots.
Yes, he does.
Which, for the love of God, man, wash the inside of your boots.
Hey, it worked. Sometimes stinkiness can come in handy. Yeah. But yeah, even though this is Briggs' best episode, unfortunately, it's the episode where he gets the boot because his code of honor doesn't work in this situation.
Yeah, because towards the end of the episode, Brick ends up sticking to his code to where it makes Joe and Lightning want to vote him off because he's helping the enemy.
Yeah. So Brig, you were too good for this series. So good, in fact, that your current team comes to salute you, and will salute you. I'm doing a salute now for the best sergeant in the series.
Me too. Also, back to the maggots, we get the introduction of another person, another alter of Mike, Manitoba Smith, who is clearly based on Han Solo.
Oh, absolutely based on Han Solo. And at the end of this episode, it's Cameron pretty much figuring out that Mike has alternate personalities.
We also have Anne-Maria being kidnapped by Gollum. I mean Ezekiel, and her receiving a gift from Zeke, which looks to be a diamond, which causes her to be like, "Screw this! I got a diamond. I'm gonna be rich. I quit." Then her finding out that it's just cubic zirconia, which is practically worthless.
Yep. So we've lost two in this episode. We've lost Brig because he got voted out, and Anne-Marie because she quit because she thought she was going to be rich.
Yep. But to make up for the loss of Anne-Maria, the maggots gained Dakota as a new member.
Yep. So yeah, Dakota's back in the game. For now anyway. So anyway, moving on to episode 8, which is called the Treasure Island.
Dr. McClane.
Dr. McClane, which that's obviously the island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, it's the island of Dr. McClane. My bad.
No, it says the Treasure Island of Dr. McClane, but the tower is obviously a reference to the island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, okay.
But, so
it's.
I just want to say here, because I pointed this out. I was Chester at one point says something which I swear to God he says, "Damn 4 kids."
Yeah. It does sound like that. But I'm sure that's just like Mike's VA, who does voice all of the alters.
Mm-hmm.
Simple enunciation. But we learned that the entire cast was practically drugged.
Who does Chris think he is? Who does Chris think he is? Sierra?
Because Chef served mutant turkey buttolini, and because it's mutant turkey, instead of just causing them to become drowsy, they get knocked out cold and then stranded in the middle of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
when
And
Chris
they have to make it.
Chef. Yep. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and they have to make it back to dry land, and this is where we start to see the mutation of Dakota.
Yep, because she was exposed to toxic waste for 40 minutes. Way to go, Chris.
Yep. So you've basically mutilated someone's body.
Or cause horrible massive amounts of disfiguration.
Yeah. Which she is obviously terrified of. But hey, it does lead to her being a badass.
Yeah, because she punches the shit out of a giant mutant squid, and this is also where we see Lightning and Joe take advantage of Lightning's wanting to win attitude, and basically, which is honestly a really good strategy on Joe's part.
Yeah.
No, and aside from Brick, I think Joe and Lightning have the best dynamic.
Oh, absolutely. So,
Like,
go ahead.
I was about to say, now that Brick's gone, Joe needs somebody to torment.
Yeah, she does. But also in this episode, we learned that Cameron is involved in Bubble Theory magazine, which I don't know, like how many Bubble Boys are there? Bubble Boys and Bubble Girls in the world of Total Drama that warrant Bubble Theory magazine.
I don't know, but hey, at least Cameron has something to do.
Yeah, at least he does. But the main challenge in this episode is life itself, because we learn that not only is Sam underground, but he's also with the next cameo, which is Gwen in her worst nightmare ever, being in a claustrophobic environment. Yep. But not only that, being buried alive in basically this season's equivalent to Owen, which means farts. Lots and lots of farts.
Especially after Sam ate a shit ton of Chef's turkey buttolini.
Yep. And yeah, this is where thankfully people start calling Chris out because of the fact that, dude, you buried these.
Chris out.
No, basically, no, properly calling him out. Like, dude, this is too much even for you.
But we also see the complete mutation of Dakota into Dakotazoid, which people have pointed out is a needlessly cruel fate for Dakota.
Actually, it may be. Actually, honestly, this is going to be controversial take, but I disagree with that. I honestly disagree with this because of the fact that it made her a much more positive person, because she learned how to socialize with people because of this mutation, but also she got a man. Her man basically accepts her regardless of her mutation. So honestly, I do get where they're coming from. Like, it's like what Chris did to her was awful, but at the same time, it ended up turning into a positive for her, because she was not in this for the money, and hey, she can at least get a spin-off. The geek. I don't know. The Superpower Mutant and the Geek. There we go. There's the title of her spin-off: Superpower Mutant and the Geek.
But fair. You make a point. Counterpoint. Sam's acceptance of her is not a result of her mutation. That's just Sam being a decent human being. Secondly, people are probably just going to treat Dakota like a circus freak because of her mutation. I mean, we already see how Chris treats Ezekiel. So what? Not to mention, Hollywood is known for being super exploitive.
Yeah,
Especially reality TV is known for being super scummy and exploitative. Actual reality TV show. I mean, heck, just using Hell's Kitchen as an example. After somebody's eliminated, they go through a psychiatric analysis to make sure they didn't suffer any mental damage after being on the show. And now imagine being on a more stressful, life-threatening reality show like Total Drama.
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from there, and I'm not saying that what Chris didn't do was awful, and yeah, Dakota's gonna have to live with this for the rest of her life. But at the same time, I think she'll at least be happy in the knowledge that my man is with me and gonna love me for who I am.
Yeah. But speaking of Dakota, she does get the boot, which would have gone to Scott if it weren't for the fact that he found an invincibility statue that we neglected to mention at the beginning. But hey, why not bring it up here? It's basically any form of immunity idol you would see in stuff like fucking Survivor or shit.
Yeah.
But Dakota does go home, but at least despite the genetic damage to her body, she does get a happy ending with Sam.
Yeah.
As they just Jeff and Bridget her remaining time on the show.
And
but
again,
go ahead.
Again, also as well. It makes it even more confusing why they didn't bring back both Cody and Dakota back when they brought back Sierra and Sam for All Star, when they bring back Sierra and Sam for All Stars, because it would have been it would have been an interesting dynamic to see these two polar opposite couples go at each other.
Fair enough, but probably wasn't in. Again, probably executive meddling.
Because I honestly think that if I was doing Total Drama All Stars and it all played out the same here leading up to it, I would be like, okay, we've got Dakota, who's obviously one of the more unique characters in the Total Drama franchise. She's in the sense that you look at her and it's like, oh my god, and then you have like, okay, what's the most toxic relationship that you can think of that's still a relationship? And you just think like, oh, Cody and Sierra.
But moving on to episode 9, Grand Chef Auto, we get the merge.
The merge.
We're down to the final 6. And in the previous episodes, Cameron blabbed to Scott about Mike's DID, and now Scott is using that as blackmail against Mike, threatening to tell Zoe about his condition. Which is honestly really fucking scummy, even for Scott.
Yeah, even for Scott, that's scummy. And I feel like at this point, since Scott is doing this, Mike should have like really sat down and contemplated it. Like, okay, this is either going to go really bad for me, or I can make it all end right here if I just tell Zoe.
But again, this is a really big thing for Mike, because it's in his mind, this could either go really well, or she could think that Mike's a complete weirdo. We even see Chester almost affirm the latter being like, yeah, she'll be accepting, and my Sadie Bug will become Miss Canada. Which, admittedly, Chester saying that he's Miss Canada is somewhat funny.
Yeah. But also in this episode, we have the return of Duncan, who's been Hannibal lectured.
Yep, and as soon as as they wanted him to demo the challenge, he runs off.
Yeah, which I was like, yeah, that is Duncan to a T.
But in terms of the challenge, the first part involves them going through Chef's kitchen to try to find keys.
But as we learn in this episode, no one steals my stuff. No one.
But these keys go to go-karts, which are guarded by Chef and the laser squirrels. And we see a funny gag with them going for Cameron's nuts. And the nuts he's referring to is the bag of peanuts he nabbed from Chef's kitchen. And Scott manages to nab a gold cart, which is a dud. So he forces Mike to tow him to every landmark. Each landmark needs to be tagged by spray paint. Basically, every contestant needs to go to a landmark and tag it with the spray paint and symbol of their choice.
Yep.
The landmarks are the first landmark is Mount Looming Tragedy. I forget what the second landmark is. But the third landmark is a totem pole on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, and also there's a bonus one, which is basically Chris's face on a mountain, which Chef tells them, but it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be. So Chef is able to get his hands on Joe and Lightning and lock them up, and guarding the cage is Fang, who Lightning bribes and be like, "Hey, if you don't eat me, I'll take you to Scott."
And the reason why he ended up in that predicament is because Joe basically left Lightning to die.
Mm-hmm.
Which causes Lightning to turn against Joe and make that deal with Fang.
Yeah. So we have the bizarre image of a shark in a go-kart.
Not the weirdest image.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, anybody who complains about Sharknado or any of the other shark movies, just look at that image of Fang in the go-kart.
We also see Scott reach his breaking point when at the third landmark, Scott forces Vito to front and tow him to the bonus landmark. And then Scott ends up bashing Mike upside the head with a club, with Zoe tailing behind him. With Zoe tailing behind the two, about to lay into Mike when she finds him unconscious. We then somehow go into Mike's subconscious as he battles it out with his other alters. And then he then proceeds to beat the shit out of his other alters and take control of his own mind once again.
Where he finally tells Zoe what is going on.
Yes. And Zoe ends up being accepting of Mike, and they can go be kissy.
Yeah.
Gotta admit, their relationship is kind of sweet. Maybe a little too saccharine sweet, but sweet nonetheless.
Yeah.
We also have Lightning tagging the final landmark and wishing to send Joe packing, but it was revealed that the final landmark was all just a ruse by Chef after Mount Chrismore was blown up by Duncan.
Which, yeah, that is definitely Duncan. That is definitely a Duncan thing.
Yep. And since the person that the first person to tag the totem pole was Scott, he sends Mike packing.
Yep. So Scott. I think at this point, Fang needs to just devour you.
Which we get close to in episode 10, Up, Up, and Away in My Pitiful Balloon.
Which, I'm going to say it right now, I don't care what anyone says, we'll get into the reasons why. This is, without a doubt, my favourite Total Drama episode.
And honestly, a fair contender for that.
Yeah, you guys will understand. But I'm looking at, I'm looking at one of the comments on the episode for Grand Theft Auto. The top one says the fact that people are spamming "I hate Scott" really shows how well done they did with this antagonist. Although his strategy sucked, the personality of this villain is really good.
And that is an excellent point. In this episode, Scott takes a back seat from being the villain to let Joe shine a bit more. Because Lightning is now against her, she forms an alliance with Cameron.
Yeah.
With the
Joe does. I'm just gonna say Joe does take the spot in this episode for antagonist, but there is another one, a surprise one, who definitely takes more of the antagonist role in this episode to one other antagonist. Like I said, you'll know when we get to it.
Yep. But we see Chris come by in a blimp and introduce the cameo contestant Heather.
Yeah, we call it cameo in quotations because she really isn't a cameo, because she is pretty much a key player in this episode.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Heather is the best cameo in contested because she does contribute more to the episode.
Yeah, and it pretty much solidifies that the Heather ending from World Tour is the canon one.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Primarily because of what she actually does in this episode, which we'll get to it. So the whole idea is that they have to build flying machines. So they pick out a thing that they have to use, that they have to make. So Joe gets a hot air balloon. So he gets a plane.
Lightning gets a helicopter.
Yeah, Scott gets a bird, and Cameron gets a rocket ship.
Yep. We also have and basically they have to build these flying machines from scratch. And Zoe's just like, where am I gonna find a cockpit? I'll never find that. And it just appears to her with triumphant music playing on, and just, okay, where am I supposed to find wings? Okay, where am I supposed to find a propeller? And she trips over it. Like, okay, I'll make the damn plane.
Yep. And she makes the plane out of a swan. Which, I always said it, Tyler, swans were more deadly than geese.
Well, please wait till we watch a regular show, and then I'll convince you that geese are more deadly than swans.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so on the blimp itself, we see Heather using one of the jammies to knock Chris and Chef out and have them take the drop of shame, which, you know how I said that this was my favorite episode? This was the start of that going up and up and up, quite literally, because Heather in this episode redeemed herself for me because just seeing the suffering of Chris, the suffering of Chris on this in this episode. It was just so satisfying.
Yeah, because we see Heather hijack the blimp and take the $1 million that she is honestly owed.
Yeah, she is honestly owed because Ezekiel stole it from her.
Or she got or in the Alejandro ending, she got ruled out by a technicality.
Either way, Heather in my eyes won World Tour.
Same here. But we see Scott make a functional pair of wings, which honestly good on him.
Yeah.
But
I'm just seeing Chef go, Chris go, my jammies, and landing in the junkyard. That's where Chris belongs, in a junkyard.
Yep, as we see the jemmies hit Chris over the head, which causes one of those like cartoony thumps that are like the length of Usopp's nose appear.
Yeah. So, you know what? Just let me get it. Let me. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna just bring it up on screen really quickly right now. How do I do it? Just bear with. Just for a second. Yeah. Screen share. Oh, wrong one. Sorry about this, everyone. Sorry, it's taking a moment. YouTube. Where are you? Okay. Tyler, just carry on talking while I get this sorted.
Okay, so because Cameron won the first part of the challenge by completing his flying machine first and showing it to Chris, he wins a smoke machine, which was nabbed by Joe. We see Joe making her hot air balloon like how Cody did at the end of World Tour. We see Lightning making a helicopter out of a giant fan and a motorcycle, which makes me question how it works.
Well, hey, the fan has real power in it.
Mm-hmm. But how is he moving forward?
I don't know. So yeah. Okay, I've got an idea. Of how I'm going to be able to do this. Carry on, Tyler. Just carry on, please.
Okay, I will. We see them using flying, fire-breathing mutant goat eggs as projectiles to try to take down the blimp, which makes me wonder how did the toxic waste mutate the goat's physiology so much to make them lay eggs instead of the standard birthing procedure of mammals.
There we go. So yeah, just look at it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It looks like a finger.
Look at that. That is just beautiful. So yeah, that's all I wanted to do. That's all I wanted to show quickly. Just that one screenshot of Chris with the bump on his head. That is just beautiful. So yeah, so Zoe is able to tame Pokemon trainer style the mutant birds.
Goats.
mutant bird goats, whatever, and they use flamethrower.
Separate fire. Yep, and they burn Scott's wings to a crisp like Icarus. Extra crispy.
Toasty.
And we see him nearly get eaten alive by Fang, as Cameron also put a detonating explosive into the smoke machine to sabotage Joe, because he knew Joe was going to steal it from him, in one of the best anime betrayals of all time.
Yeah, so wow, Cameron, good on you.
Yep. It's also and because he manages to bring down the blimp, Cameron wins immunity, and Joe is sent packing.
Yep. So Joe, you were great, but I think it was time for you to go.
Yep. But on to episode 11, my favorite episode when I was a child. Eat, puke, and be weary.
Yeah. Now, obviously, with a title like that, you should expect Owen to make a cameo now.
But Owen already made a cameo in the first episode, so we had DJ instead.
Yeah, and but also as well, as if episode 10 couldn't make me just be like, oh, Chris suffering. Chris suffers for the entirety of this episode so much that he's out of commission. So Chef takes over, which honestly, Chef is a better host than Chris.
And he's definitely improved his hosting skills from Mutiny on the Soundstage. Maybe yeah. Chris helped him workshop his host skills, which would be another good thing that Chris does, which leaves him at negative 9995.
Yeah, but Scott sneering Chris. Scott gets points. Scott gets more points because let's be faced. Like I said, anyone that can make Chris suffering gets points in my eyes. Even people like Sierra.
Honestly, like I mentioned this to Luke while we were watching the season. I hated Scott when I first watched this episode as a kid, because I was a big fan of B. I actually cried when B was eliminated.
Wow! Really?
Yeah, I was 8 years old.
Oh, little Tyler tears. Oh, but also as well, you said before, and we didn't bring this up at the intro. You said that this was the season that got you back into the Total Drama franchise. You said something along those lines.
Yeah, this was my introduction back after a hiatus, because my parents banned me from watching the show.
Which is kind of funny. You're rewatching it again now as an adult.
Yeah, but when Revenge came, I was allowed again to watch the series, and I kept up with it until current date.
Okay.
But back then, Scott was my least favorite character. I wanted him to go down so bad because of him voting out.
Yeah, but in hindsight, what's your opinion on Scott now that you're more mature? What's your opinion on Scott?
I definitely do like Scott. Do I like him more than Heather or Alejandro, or even the villain of the main villain of the reboot? No, but I do appreciate a more comedic a villain with a more comedic edge.
He's certainly better than Justin, that's for sure.
Or the villains of All Stars and Pacateo.
But he's better than Courtney as well.
I honestly, I could go either way with them because Courtney did also have funny moments, namely when she was beating the shit out of Duncan. But
yeah,
moving on to the episode proper.
yeah. So
The
this,
final...
I was just gonna say, this is probably why I think DJ was not in All Stars, because he literally says in this episode, "I found never to come back."
Mm-hmm. And the final four are given the challenge to make a dish with whatever they find on the island, and for DJ to be the taste tester. We see Lightning punching a tree to try to get some steak, but instead gets a beehive on his head. We see Cameron being chased around by we also see Scott being chased by mutant beavers. We see Zoe decide to make a salad. We see Cameron decide to make a toxic mushroom quiche, and we see Scott try to copy the quiche, but instead of toxic mushrooms, he uses a mutant frog.
Yeah, which I know. I know. I'm being pedantic here when I say it. It was not a quiche. It was a pie they made.
And we see, Lightning trying to cook up trying to make a maggot cannelloni. I believe he was trying to say cannoli, but
yeah,
cannelloni.
But and of course everyone gets sick in this episode, except for DJ, who just runs off screaming.
Yep, after an eye pops out of Scott's quiche pie thing.
Which I don't blame you, DJ. DJ, you deserve better. You deserve better.
Yep. We also then now everybody has to eat the dish they eat their own dish. We see Scott sabotaging Zoe's dish by putting poison ivy in it, and we see Scott sabotaging Cameron by swapping their dishes. And because of that, Scott wins the first challenge, which gives him an advantage in the second part of the challenge, Dork Hunter.
Which I love that title. I love the title of that challenge, Dork Hunter with Chef.
Yeah. So basically, it's just that the final four have to avoid Chef and touch a flagpole to win immunity in the next vote. While with Cameron, Lightning, and Zoe wearing tracking collars, but Scott not having to, and Chef hunts them down using a rocket launcher, but instead of rockets, it's cans of spaghetti. Which is
SpaghettiOs.
Which is either so hot or spicy that it causes an intern to lament to the fact that it burns.
Yep. And speaking of the interns, they could get Chris out of that situation with him being literally dumped in crap, but they choose not to. And I don't blame them.
In fact, they make it worse for him because then the toilet floods with more sewage.
Yep. And he deserves it. He deserves to have a bathtub for a year full of sewage.
I agree. But we see Lightning and Cameron kind of forming a tag team, as Cameron is able to disable the anti-removal feature of the tracking collars with his watch and put them on a giant raccoon monster.
Which clever little boy.
Mm-hmm. We also see Zoe get one gets spaghettied off of a cliff where a medallion that Mike gave her after he left was split in half, which causes Zoe to split in half mentally.
Yeah, and she becomes Berserker Zoe.
And she suddenly gains all sorts of survival instincts. Don't know how that works, but hey, you know what? It's cool to see Zoe get her revenge on Chef.
Yeah, which because we don't have Izzy in this season, it had to be Zoe. If I guarantee, if Izzy was a contestant in this season, this would be a rematch between Izzy and Chef.
Yep. We see Chef come into contact with the raccoon monster as the raccoon takes the cannon from Chef, slamming it onto his head and pull the trigger, which is just funny.
Yeah.
And we see the climactic. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say
we
see the climactic showdown between Scott and Fang, because as Scott is reaching the flagpole, Fang shows up and it's just like, oh no, starts running away, and then Scott finally asks him, like, what do you want with me? Which obviously wants his tooth back. So he gives it back, and even when Fang gets his tooth back, he still can't let go of the grudge.
I don't know. Maybe he has a very sensitive pride.
Yeah, well, he's a shark, so I can see that.
But we see that we see Fang fall into a pit trap that was made by Zoe, and Zoe sets off another trap that steamrolls Scott into oblivion. And as Lightning does his victory dance, he finds out that Cameron was actually riding on his back the entire time, so Cameron wins immunity.
Which Lightning is not all too pleased about, because, let's be honest, Cameron was essentially cheating.
Well, Lightning promised to take Cameron to the finish, and he neglected his promise.
Well, yeah, but he technically did cheat Lightning out of a win. Even if Lightning did promise, Cameron still unfairly got that immunity.
Either way, Scott goes home and shares his ride with Fang, who takes his tooth back and chews him into oblivion.
Yeah, which is gonna have consequences when he comes back for the finale. But here's the question that I have. Okay, skipping ahead a little bit, because it's eventually revealed that because of Fang, Scott has to be in a wheelchair where he can do beep beep. So like one for red for yes, two green for no. But you say that Scott is in All Stars, so how is he back to normal by All Stars?
I would say the physical wounds heal, the mental damage did not.
Fair enough. So yeah, I just had to skip a little bit ahead there because I just had to question that. So yeah, we see Chef wanted to do, because Chef honestly wanted to do the catapulting, yeah, in this episode, but as he's doing it, Chris is like, nope, I'm the catapulter.
And we see Chef feeding Chris some quiche that makes him hurl.
Which, yeah, Chris, you stole Chef's catapulting, so you deserve that. So that is that is episode 11. Another, like, let's just shit on Chris, literally.
But now on to episode 12, The Enchanted Frankenforest.
Which I tell you like that. It does sound like if Mayuri Kusuchi was in this season, this would be his cameo episode.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
So, I'm just gonna say, I love the intro to this episode where they're just showing the repeat of on the TV of Chris's just worst moments in the last episode. He's like, "No, stop it, stop it, stop it,"
and says that whoever made that is getting fired.
No, they deserve a promotion.
Which I agree. But getting into the episode proper, we see Lightning making a punching bag out of some pillows to resemble Cameron, because to the point where he bites off a part of the pillow punching bag thing. We see Cameron scared shitless, and we see Commando Zoe try to inspire Cameron to take his fear and throttle it into courage. Keyword try, because what Zoe gained in survival instincts, she lost in social skills.
Yes, she did. So the challenge of this episode revolves around Chris's pet Venus flytrap called Larry.
Yep, and how they have to nab a flower from Larry and bring it back to Chris.
Yeah, which I've got to say, okay, Chris may be a horrible human being, but I can't believe we've got to give him a point for being like at least decent enough to sort of like care for a Venus flytrap that's been mutated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he gets half a point. He gets half a point.
We see Zoe and Cameron try to work together, but tensions are very high between the two, while Lightning goes it on his own and becomes the butt monkey now that Scott's gone.
Yeah. And also, of course, Larry is in the middle of a river of toxic waste that they have to jump over.
Yeah, they have to skip across on rocks where they meet a giant mutant turtle. However, it is not in its adolescent stage and is definitely not a ninja.
Nope. And of course, Lightning is the one to get first to the flower, but he's gloating so much that he doesn't realize, oh wait, this is a flealess fly trap. What does it do? It shuts its prey up.
Yep.
So we get the glorious image of lightning in just saliva from the Venus from Larry the fly trap, meaning that Cameron is scared to even attempt to go after the flower, and so he has to basically encourage him. But at this point, I do believe this is where Zoe gets her personality back.
No, it's after Lightning nabs the flower from Larry, and Larry actually starts to stand up and walk around to try to get its flower back. We see Cameron nab the flower from Lightning, and Zoe being like, "Come on, Cameron, pass it over. I can win this." And Cameron, after Zoe treated him like kind of cruddy, he's like, "No way, you're just gonna vote me off."
Yeah.
And then Cameron gets eaten alive by Larry while sparing the flower. And then Zoe realizes no money can buy a true friend. So Zoe goes in to save Cameron while Lightning takes the flower and runs the claim his immunity. And he gets to choose who he takes to the final two.
Which, of course, because he's pissed off at Cameron, he decides to take him to the final two so that he can basically beat him.
Yep. Which brings us into the final episode, the ultimate showdown, Brain versus Brawn.
Which Cameron wins. I don't care. I don't care about Lightning fans. Cameron wins this.
But before their showdown, they get some inspirational messages from home, where we get to see Cameron's mom say, "Yeah, purified air is expensive as a mofo, so if he doesn't win the money, they're going to have to deflate the bubble."
Mm-hmm.
While Lightning gets to see his dad, who doesn't even face him, and bets his championship rings on Lightning winning. A fun fact: Lightning's real name is Rudolph Jackson.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I've heard that name somewhere before. Not from this franchise, somewhere else. Let me see. Rudolph Jackson. Just
It's probably a reference to a football player or like some kind of big like major league sport.
yeah, probably. So.
But anyways, Lightning and Cameron are taken to the Cruciseum, which is basically a giant coliseum where Lightning and Cameron will duke it out for the mill. We also see all the eliminated contestants, with Scott being in his nephew trauma chair after Fang mauled him.
Yeah.
With everybody being forced to cheer lest they all be mauled by Fang.
Mm-hmm. And also, I do like on the entrance to the arena, it's basically what remains of the plane.
Yeah, which is a unique idea to use on how to use the plane.
Yeah. And also, I do like that the interns are just miming the music.
Yep. And then we basically see Lightning and Cameron taking stuff from a junk pile to use as armor for their final battle, with Cameron making a full-on Iron Man suit.
Yes, he's just straight up Iron Man here. Whereas not DJ Lightning basically makes basically just does like the cheapest costume he can make. So it's literally just a saucepan on his head with pipes for greaves on his legs and metal coating that I assume is from a car on his chest and arms, with his main weapon being a bat.
Which is just a mannequin leg with spikes.
Yeah. So it's kind of like Lightning just like got whatever he could find right in one and then just be like, right, this, okay, I'm good. Because Lightning in this episode completely underestimates Cameron. He completely does not see Cameron winning at all because of Cameron just being. It's basically David and Goliath at this point.
Yep. If David Slingshot we're basically a walking tactical nuke.
Yes. And even then, Lightning gets some good shots off on him.
Yep, and we also see Chris bringing in some of the mutant inhabitants of the island, like the giant mutant beetle. But then, when the remote is destroyed, it unleashes everything: Larry, the mutant gophers, the weird tree, Ezekiel.
I love how it just unleashes Ezekiel.
Yep. And we also see one of the laser squirrels laser a hole through Anne Maria's hair.
Yeah, but we have probably the most painful moment in this season, and that's saying a lot. Where after Lightning is entangled by the giant crocodile octopus thing, and Cameron Iron Man kicks him, you see Lightning fall down feet with his legs wide open, and his balls get whacked into the floor. That's so painful that even Chris feels it.
Yeah. And then we get to where the endings diverge. After Lightning gets some good hits in on Cameron, Cameron's armor starts to low on power to where he then commands the armor to let out a giant electromagnetic pulse, turning Lightning into a giant magnet. To where a bunch of toxic which a bunch of toxic waste barrels gather up around Lightning and turn them into a literal lightning rod. And this is where the endings diverge. In Cameron's ending, but basically the similarities are that Lightning's hair turns white, and basically it's all a matter of like who falls first. In Cameron's ending, Lightning falls first, and Cameron musters his strength to his dead armor because the EMP overloaded his armor, so it's hard to move the armor. In which case, Cameron manages to pin Lightning and win the mill. And in Cameron's ending, he decides that he no longer needs his bubble, and decides to spend the million on all the other contestants instead. So Sam could buy gaming consoles. Go ahead.
Which is why I consider this the official ending, the Cameron ending, because he was nice enough to let everyone have a crack at the million.
Yep. Sam gets to buy a bunch of game consoles. Joe gets to open her dream gym, and Brick decides to go to fashion school. Yeah. Good for Brick.
Also, yeah, good for Brick. And also, I can imagine Nicole used her share of the million to be like, right, I'm creating my own spin-off now. The super mutant and the geek. I honestly want to see that. Now.
It's not like Dakota needs the needs any money, so she probably gave her share to Sam.
Yeah, well, she technically does need money to get the spin-off off the ground because you do need a budget.
Fair enough, but and then in Lightning's ending, Cameron is the one who falls first, and then Lightning lands on top of Cameron, where he wins the million, and decides to get buy his own football stadium.
Which it's funny because when we were watching this, because we're watching this in your server, Tyler, in your Discord server. Yeah. Right as we were finishing this, and we put on Lightning's ending, we had one of the other peeps come in from your server that has little knowledge and total drama, and asking about that, like, why a football stadium?
Yeah. That was pretty funny. But anyways, there is one thing towards the end that both endings do share. Chris attempts to blow up the speedboat that everybody's on, but then ends up blowing up part of the dock where Chris is standing, which was that being placed by Chef. And then Chris gets captured by EPA, and everybody gets, and then all the residents of Wawanakwa get quarantined. And Chris gets sent to jail.
Which is a good thing, a very, very good thing. It's long overdue.
I would agree. But that is the end of Total Drama Revenge of the Island.
Overall, if I had to rank this, I would say controversially, this would probably be tied with World Tour as my second favorite of the what we've seen so far.
Interesting.
Yeah, just
I
because
personally,
I will say my reasons why because we had because like I said, it was a relatively short season, but I was never bored watching it. And you talked about like World Tour up in the scales. I think this equally up the scales for better or worse, because like I said, this is the point where I feel like the series has nearly jumped the shark, but not gone all the way.
yeah, believe me, wait till we get to Pocketeo.
But yeah, so it's tied with World Tour. I still do really like total drama action, but that's just my geeky movie personnel coming out there.
For me personally, I think this is arguably the most underrated season of total drama yet.
Absolutely.
I really like the update. I'm really a fan of the new cast, and like, look, watching this back arguably gives me the most amount of nostalgia. I will say it does take a while for it to get off the ground, but like what? But like it does bring out some bangers, like especially episode 10 and onwards. It's straight bangers.
Yeah, absolutely. Like everyone who hates who doesn't like this season, but it's like, when are we going to see Chris suffer? Episode 10 of this episode 10 and 11 of this season. Look no further.
Yeah, and I will say, like, thanks to the reboot, I do have the idea of a rematch season in my head. So that could give us another idea for a what if video.
Yeah,
What
go
if
ahead.
the Revenge cast got a second season? Not with
That
All Stars, but by themselves.
So, well, for starters, obviously, Sam and Dakota have to still be official. And I would honestly, you know what would make a great finale?
Brick and Joe?
No, not Brick and Joe. Dakota versus B. Because we have the superhuman mutant going up against the super silent genius.
Interesting. But this is definitely something I'm definitely gonna sit on.
Yeah.
But the time is nigh, Luke.
Oh.
My holy grail.
Tyler, can we just skip it? Can we just skip it?
We can't skip it. It's part of the main timeline, so we're gonna go through with it. The next season we are watching is Total Drama All-Stars.
Well, it can't be that bad. I mean, we've got Heather, we've got Gwen, we've got Duncan, we've got we've got Joe, we've got Cameron, we've got Scott. Surely it's going to be a good season, right? Right?
We'll just have to wait and find out. So, see you guys next time with Total Drama All-Stars. And until then, peace.
Peace.